Hello, creatives. So, in this episode, I want to revisit what is creative spirit because this idea has been evolving more and more in my own life. This is a term I've been using more frequently in my teaching over the past few years. Not because it's anything new, but because it best describes how I see creativity, especially when it's integrated both spiritually and with the human experience. Creative spirit can mean different things for different people. So rather than trying to fit it into a box and define it in one narrow way, I want to explore the multi-layers of creative spirit and the creative process, and then share how I've come to understand it through my own experience. But before I dive in, I also want to first say that everything I share comes from me connecting the dots from my own experience as an artist, witnessing what my students experienced, as well as everything I've learned about creativity and the creative process. And I'm fully aware that not everything I say will resonate with everyone. And that's okay. But that's also why I encourage you to take what feels true for you and leave what doesn't. Because it's important that you trust in your own discernment. So let's dive in. One way we often use the phrase creative spirit is to describe a person. You might say, they have such a creative spirit, right? But they may not necessarily be a creative professional or do anything artistic professionally. It's just the way that they live their life. I've known people who weren't creative professionally, yet creativity infused their entire life. Like, for example, what they wore, how they dressed, the way they decorated their house, the conversations they would have with their friends, who they hung around with. Their environment gravitated towards creativity. Creativity lived through them. Another way we can think of creative spirit is an inspiration. For centuries, artists have spoken about the muse, divine inspiration, a spark of an idea that arrives from somewhere beyond themselves. Poets talk about the perfect blend of words suddenly appearing on the page. Spiritual teachers speak of downloads from the heavens while they were meditating or praying. Creative spirit, in a sense, is something received, something that moves through us rather than comes from us. And then there's another layer. I believe creative spirit is something we are born with. Creativity isn't something we earn or prove or learn later. It's part of being human. If we look at early humans long before the word art even existed, people were already creating. They were painting on the walls of caves. They were etching marks in stone, erecting structures that honored the cycles of the moon and the sun. They created rituals to help make sense of birth, death, and life. Creativity was essential for survival as they invented tools to find food and create shelter, or even navigate the seasons. Creative spirit lives in our DNA. It's part of being human. Ancient humans also used creativity to make sense of the world. They didn't have science or the internet, so they used symbols, rituals, and stories to understand life, change, and the unknown. Creative spirit helped them process mystery, and I believe it still does. We're naturally born with this curiosity. So today, we've learned to use creativity to process trauma, grief, transition, and uncertainty. This is why art therapy exists, why journaling heals, why stories matter. Creativity becomes a language for what can't always be spoken. It's a way for us to share what we're experiencing internally. For me personally, creative spirit revealed itself most clearly when I let go of control. So as many of you know, I was trained as a graphic designer, a field rooted in problem solving, structure, and outcome. Totally focused in those things. But when I moved into abstract painting and mixed media art, I entered unfamiliar territory. At first, it was uncomfortable. I was thinking it. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I was a beginner. But eventually, as I continued to sit with that discomfort, I began to experience flow. Now, flow is that state where the mind quiets, time dissolves, you're no longer thinking about what you're making, you're listening, you're creating intuitively. And in that state, something opens up. I want to share a moment that made this undeniably true for me. I was preparing for an art show. Multiple pieces going at a time. I was feeling stressed, rushed, overwhelmed, pressured to finish. One piece in particular wasn't working. The more I tried, the more I fixed it. The more I forced it, the worse it became. It was like a stubborn child refusing to cooperate. That's what I call some of my paintings that I get frustrated with. I got really frustrated with this until I finally just gave up. Now here's the magic. I didn't give up in defeat, but in surrender. I stopped trying to figure it out. I let go of the original vision I had in my head. I released the need to control the outcome, and something shifted. I was still moving. I was still applying paint, grabbing collage material, putting that on, but without expectation. I moved the ego aside, and suddenly things started working and falling into place. The piece began to evolve on its own into something far more alive and meaningful than what I had originally imagined. In that moment, it felt as if something else had stepped in. That's when I knew creative spirit had taken the lead. You see, creative spirit sees the bigger picture beyond our limited perspective, beyond our plans, beyond our expectations, and beyond our original vision in our head, which we get attached to. And when we allow it to guide the process, something magical can happen. This is why creativity is not just about making art. It's about connection. When we create in this way, we regulate our nervous system, we enter presence, and we tap into an inner wisdom. I often say a creative practice is like meditation with movement. When we engage our hands in repetitive, intuitive motion, collaging, doodling, watercolor, whatever it is, the mind softens. Overthinking loosens its grip. And when the mind quiets, intuition becomes louder. Answers arise not because we forced them, but because we listened more closely. So there's a quote by Betsy Beckman that captures this beautifully. Art making is somehow all at once a journey, a communication, a modality, a healing, and a prayer. Through the arts, we connect with the mystery of the creative spirit beyond us, moving in us and through us. This is what I'm talking about. Creative spirit is mystical. It is within us, beyond us, and moving through us. Because what I'm describing here, the letting go of control, being open to what organically wants to unfold, can also be applied to our life and the challenges that we faced throughout our life. And yet many people feel blocked and disconnected from their creative spirit and from this source. The biggest obstacle I see is ourselves. We carry beliefs and attach to these beliefs about ourselves like, I'm not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body. I'm not an artist. I'm not talented enough. Those beliefs are not divine. They are learned. And they disconnect us from something essential. The first step is that we have to push up against these beliefs. And the second is choosing a creative practice that feels safe and forgiving. This is why I gravitated to mixed media. It welcomes imperfection. It allows you mistakes to get messy. It gives you permission to be human. And you realize you're creative. And here's the magical part. When we sit with discomfort, with resistance, with the fear of not being good enough, with the insecurity and the doubt, we rewire the brain, our brains. The discomfort passes, and each time we return, it holds less power over us. So my hope is that creativity becomes recognized not only as a way to self-express ourselves or something that we do, but as a steady presence and guiding force that has been with us since we were born. Creativity is an ancient wisdom, a higher intelligence. It offers a way of listening, of receiving deeper insight, of reconnecting to our true selves. I believe creative spirit is always guiding us forward, because creative spirit doesn't just want us to make art. It wants to bring us home, back to our true selves and to our wholeness. And it doesn't just stop with us. When we become more whole, more connected to ourselves, we become more present, more grounded, and more available to the people in our lives. That presence changes how we listen, how we respond, and how we show up in the world. And when we reconnect with creative spirit, the ripple effects move far beyond the page, the canvas, the studio, the artwork. They extend into our relationships, our communities, and the lives we touch. So I invite you to explore how creative spirit moves in your life and moves through you. Thank you for listening to True Creativity Within, the podcast. Until next time, remember, follow your creative spirit and stay creative. Bye.